Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Monday afternoon, late morning. Honestly, it's all blended together because we're between Christmas and New Year's. Harrison Faigen of SB Nation is the guest. Harrison, I want to know, like, you are one of the more like self-driven people that I know. And like the most like on track, on the straight and narrow people I know. What does you slacking off in between holidays look like?
I played some video games. Got to try out the PSVR 2.
On the clock?
Yeah, no. You're like, oh, come on my show, and then like 1 minute in, you're like, let me see if I can get Harrison fired or get him in trouble.
I need a daily co-host. What's wrong?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be like, yeah, Anthony, I really need a job now. Now you have to give me one, please. No, yeah, I played PSVR 2. It's pretty sick. I hadn't really done a whole lot. Yeah, I hadn't done a whole lot of VR gaming before, but got one on Black Friday for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So got to try some Beat Saber. It is hilarious to watch someone play VR.
Yes.
As somebody who like I hadn't been in the room with like VR stuff before, and like I was like, oh man, I feel so cool doing this, and then I watched Mia do it, and I'm like, wow, I must have looked as dumb as a human possibly could.
Anytime I see people doing the VR stuff or like videos of people, doing the VR thing, I think to myself, like, you kind of sort of need a whole room dedicated to this, because the number of videos I've seen where somebody is punching somebody or punching something or bumping into something or all of that stuff is kind of crazy. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, not to do an ad for the PSVR 2, but it does have cameras on the front, and it like takes in your play area, so it like gives you barriers if you start to walk towards like something where you're saying like, I don't want to walk past this point. It'll like put up like a little wall in the game, and it's like, don't do this. You're about to punch your TV. So
yeah, Jen would be the
thing that it does not recognize is when your cat is hungry and he decides that he wants to walk into the play area and bump up against you while you are playing Beat Saber. Then apparently when you step on him, you're the bad guy and it's your fault.
The only game that I have any interest in playing on there would be like the new Batman one, but I also feel like that'd be too intense.
I was
very nervous about like
I was playing the new Horizon one. It's pretty cool. I will say, like firing a little bow and arrow. There's some cool. It's cool tech.
I think if I get one, I would probably play it outside in my backyard and just completely remove any and all.
Famously, there's nothing that can go wrong if you're running around with a bunch of cords and wires attached to yourself outside.
Yeah. There's a lot more room. There's a lot more room outside than there is in this. You don't realize how much junk children bring into your life. Like my house is just perpetually it's never clean. It's just, there's always toys on the ground. There's always children walking around. There's like a little 2-year-old. He would see me playing this thing and he'd be like, daddy, daddy. And then I would definitely kick my son. And then again, I'd be the bad guy.
That out of context.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and move on now that we've both gotten each other into trouble and talk about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to continue to kind of, watch the fallout from the Dorian Finney-Smith, D'Angelo Russell trade. We will get Harrison's thoughts on that trade and, whether, how he feels about this, how much better does it make the Lakers, all of that good stuff. We'll also talk about what we think, I've already talked about what I think will come next, and then we'll talk about what we think should come next, which I think are probably two different things, two fairly different things. So we will go ahead and hit on all of that. Quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button. If you guys are watching live on YouTube right now, if you guys are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@Lakers Lounge, where you can find the show. If you guys are also hit the like button too, and then share and all that good stuff. And then if you guys are listening in the morning to this conversation via podcast, please hit subscribe wherever it is that you get your pods, especially on Odyssey, because I am now actually officially a company man. So let's go ahead though and start. Harrison, what do you think of the trade? Like, what do you think of the return, getting Dorian or Dodo, as JJ calls him, JJ.
JJ. That's what JJ is actually short for. It's Jojo Reddick.
JJ.
I think it actually is, because isn't it like John Joseph or something? So theoretically, you could call him Jojo.
Yeah, it's a J. Jonah Jameson situation here for that's who's coaching the Lakers. But yeah, what do you think of the move? Do you think it's the right way to use D'Angelo Russell's expiring? All of that good stuff. Where do you land here?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like that old drill tweet, like you absolutely under no circumstances have to hand it to Rob Pelinka, but I think you kind of have to hand it to Rob Pelinka in this case. Like, this is a good move, I think, in the sense of, both for the team and for him. I don't know that you were getting, like, I think that maybe the one quibble is like, that's like, if my gut reaction to the trade, I'll be honest, like when I first got the Shams notification was, yeah, do you want to use D'Lo's contract for Dorian Finney-Smith? Like, is this the best that you can do for that? But then it's like, they didn't use a first round pick, so they still have those to play with and potentially do something that. So I think this is like an above average trade. I think this is a fine trade. You do lose a little bit of playmaking with D'Lo. I am a little bit more concerned, even despite Austin's incredible performance against the Kings the other night. That is a team in disarray in more ways than one. And I think we'll maybe even touch on that and joke about it in the show. But every time they've asked Austin to be the primary facilitator, there have been, like, it's been like, oh, maybe this is a little more than he's ready for. And they've had to sort of scale it back each time. And so there is a little bit of concern about that. But I do think in a vacuum, getting Dorian Finney-Smith, even though he's probably like a worse player than D'Angelo Russell, or not probably, definitely, like in terms of individual talent, he's going to help the Lakers with more needs than D'Angelo Russell could. D'Angelo Russell was never going to, despite whatever he said last season about turning him, that he was going to model his game after Derek White. We never really saw that. And Dorian Finney-Smith can give the Lakers sort of the spacer, somewhat versatile defender, maybe not as versatile as his rep, but somewhat versatile defender that they didn't have before this. And, to do that without having to use one of those first round picks, I think is pretty solid work.
Yeah. I think my one concern, now that we're like 24 hours removed from the deal, is, last year the hang up that the Lakers kept running into is that they didn't have expiring money that they could send out to go out and get somebody else, or, to make a move. And now that you've sent out your biggest expiring salary, that I think we could reach the deadline, and we could, Rob Pelinka could do his like post deadline check in, or we could get like the leak right, where of what the Lakers try to do at the deadline, and the excuse that we get is that the Lakers just didn't have enough expiring salary to possibly.
There wasn't anyone willing to take Gabe Vincent, even with 2 first round picks.
Right.
That's how toxic his $10 million deal is.
Right. And so, like, I think if because there are people still, like you said, there are a lot of people who do not want to hand it to Rob Pelinka, and I think for good reason, right? Like, we have heard so many more excuses.
He's seen us with the football before, where it's like, hey, Rob's a good GM, and then it's like, there goes the rug, pulled it right out from under you.
We've had so many more. We've gotten so many more excuses for things that didn't happen than things have actually happened over the last couple of years, especially. And I if now all of a sudden Rob has this now built-in excuse of, well, we only had the one bullet to fire in terms of expiring salary, and now therefore this is the team that we have to go with moving forward. You know, my problem there is that like it's never we really like this team. It's always you couldn't buy a house that wasn't for sale. Like,
yeah.
Learn to leak better, dude. Like learn to say like we actually really like
I
this
love
spot.
I love that you are at the point of madness where your brain now thinks in terms of Rob Pelinka. Like, how is Rob going to frame this through a leak as an excuse to do something?
Yeah, it's I'm fully Rob pilled.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
It's like, well, these losers still have to prove to us that they're worth investing a first round pick in. Look, I made a trade. Okay, so everybody can shut up. I made a trade. All right, you got your 3-and-D whatever. Okay,
Yeah,
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Happy
all right,
fucking birthday, LeBron.
Yeah,
stop whining. No, but I hilariously like that's what I'm hearing now. Right? Is that like the Lakers they've made their move for now? They're going to see what this team looks like now for the next
Dorian Finney-Smith
games.
He's got to prove if he's worth investing in. You know?
Yeah, right.
Shake Milton, your legacy's on the line. Can you prove that you're worth investing a first round pick in?
I thought Shake Milton was a lot. Did you? I don't know anybody. You said you didn't listen to yesterday's show, but I was like I was on the air and I didn't know how old Shake Milton was. I thought he was like mid-20s, and then I like Googled. I was like, he's 28. Like I don't know if people could hear that in my voice. Because this is the same, like right before they made this move, Shams Karani was on ESPN telling people that the types of players that the Lakers are going to be looking to acquire are going to be good now and like 4 or 5 years into the future. That means that like they have Dorian Finney-Smith still being good at like 37 years old.
It's crazy. The Lakers have found the new market inefficiency, and it's guys who are good at basketball for a long time. It's more valuable to have those guys than guys who are good at basketball right now, but are going to be bad in the future.
Yeah. No, Rob understands the difference between Mr. Right and Mr. Right now. It was just, but I guess
it's all
like,
about sustainable Laker excellence, Anthony. You know, sustainable Laker excellence is what they're trying to create.
See now, like now, you being able to just like grab an exact quote from Rob Pelinka says that you're also a little driven a little crazy by this front office.
When they gamify Shake Milton's development through app-based deliverables, it's over for the league. Okay.
Oh man. All right. So do you think the Lakers got better? Like you mentioned that you know, D'Lo is probably the best player in this trade overall, like highest rated on 2K or whatever. I think he's the most talented. I think Dorian Finney-Smith helps you win more than D'Lo does, but
I think that depends on situation. I think with the Lakers having LeBron, AD guys to create, like if you're a team that is completely bereft of offense, and you had like a bunch of like if you had 10 Dorian Finney-Smiths, like you would need a D'Lo to sort of set the table and score a little more and whatever. Like the things that D'Lo is good at, the Lakers don't have as much of a need for. They have guys who do that stuff better.
Well, what's funny is if you had 10 D'Angelo Russells, you'd be just as screwed as you'd be if you had 10 Dorian Finney-Smiths.
Well, the Lakers tried that 2 years ago when they were just like a roster of like all combo guards. They were like, damn, it helped have a Dorian Finney-Smith right now.
No, they had Trevor Ariza. He was good.
Yeah.
They had a 37-year-old Trevor Ariza.
But yeah, I think the Lakers, I think they did get better because again, this is a guy that he addresses more of their weaknesses than D'Angelo Russell could and doesn't have as much overlap with areas that they're already good. It's just a better distribution of resources. It's like if you're building a character in a video game or something, or like you're playing like an RPG or you're playing 2K and you're building out your My Player. And it's like, sure, you can pour all your skill points into like just buckets if you want. But you're probably going to do a little better and the game's going to be a little easier if you make yourself a little bit more well-rounded.
Yeah, I think so. Like, you know, I think one thing that kind of frustrates me about the way that we talk about basketball now, and I see this actually with really, really smart people too, is like, one, this whole needle mover thing, I hope it dies in a fire. Like whether or not a single deal moves the needle. Like, what does that even mean? People heard that cliche plenty, and now they've decided that that's how they're going to grade all the. Does this trade move the needle? Yes, it does. This moves a needle. How much? I don't know, but it moves a needle in one way or the other. But like with
no, both teams are exactly as good or bad as they were before. That's
right,
basically how many trades work. Yeah.
It's like, does it move a needle? No. Does the needle work?
They traded D'Angelo Russell for D'Angelo Russell. You know, there's no difference.
Is your needle screwed on too tight that it isn't moving under any circumstances whatsoever? But yeah, I like what kind of frustrates me sometimes. In kind of talking about basketball, my favorite aspect of basketball is that it's jazz. What somebody's doing over there is going to impact what somebody is doing over there. It's not baseball where it's literally adding up the counting stats at each position and you find out like how that team looks. Basketball, soccer, these things are like they're these living entities. And if you tweak something over here, you're going. But the best example of that, and it's crazy that like the same people who ignored the impact starting Max Christie has had on Austin Reeves are now turning around and saying that Dorian Finney-Smith doesn't move the needle. How do you make the same mistake twice? Max Christie got into the starting lineup. He's able to take he's able to handle the point of attack defense. Dorian Finney-Smith is better than Max Christie. So if at the very least Dorian starts in place of Max Christie eventually, the Lakers got better. And then Max moves into a bench role, and then now all of a sudden, like you have a more stable defense at every point in the game. And this idea that like Dorian is not going to move the needle for a team that has had no wing defense this year. Like Rui is much better at defending power forwards and centers than he is at guarding wings.
That's my understanding of DFS is that he, for as much as he's defended every position this year, he's stronger now at defending centers and power forwards is my understanding from Nets people. And so I almost wonder, like, is he going into the starting lineup and it's like him, AD, LeBron, Max, and Austin?
Yeah. So I've seen this point a lot, and it's in the chat here too, that DFS guards for. It's hard for me to really.
I will fully admit I have not watched a ton of Nets this year.
No, I will. But my
understanding from following the team, sort of through smart people like Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily and the rest of the crew over there, is that he is more of a 4-5 defender at this point. Like he can do the other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I'm not completely disregarding what people who have watched him are going to say about him. That's, I think, when like people get themselves into trouble, right? But that Nets situation was so weird and so wonky, where they're like clearly trying to lose. They're trading Dennis Schroeder for a guy who wasn't going to play this year. They're trading Dorian Finney-Smith for D'Angelo Russell.
The organization is. The coach is probably annoying them with how much he's been winning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But still, it's still such a weird situation that it's hard for me to like say that, these guys, this is who Dorian Finney-Smith definitely is. Now, look, he is 31. On the other side of 30, you are going to slow down, and good defenders find a way to still be effective. And maybe the way that he has found to be effective is to guard bigger guys better than he was before. But even still, like Dorian,
can't get faster, you can get stronger though.
Yeah.
But
like Dorian, though, even at this stage of his career where he is better at guarding, 4s and 5s, he's still better than any Laker at guarding 3s.
So that was the exact point that I was going to make, was like the bar is he like the greatest wing stopper in the league anymore? Clearly not, among that group or whatever, but can he guard wings better than Rui? And I would say the answer is almost assuredly yes.
Yeah. Is he better at doing that than like Dalton when he's out there? Is he better doing that than
Yes, I'm confident saying that, having not watched the Nets very much, he is better at that than Dalton.
Right.
You
but
might
this
be
is the
better
thing
at
though. Like
basketball, with all due
that's
respect.
exactly my point, right? Like that's exactly my point is that we aren't just kind of grabbing him from this situation and putting him in this, completely different situation that isn't apples to apples, and then trying to say that he is going to be the same person in this situation than he was before. Again, basketball is jazz. It's this thing that like you show up, like the best example of another good example of this, even though I think the best one is the impact Max has had on Austin. But remember when the Lakers traded for Trevor Ariza when he was leaving Orlando? Not like most recently.
Good Trevor Ariza. Everyone calm down. It's okay. No, pull back onto the road. You don't have to drive off the bridge. It's okay. The first time. The first time they traded Maurice Evans and I think Brian Cook for him. And Trevor was like immediately this incredible memory if that is the actual trade. I do not remember. I was too young. I'm
pretty sure that's what it is. Somebody Google that while I talk, or maybe while you talk. Like I'll Google it to make sure. But like they traded for Trevor Ariza, and same kind of thing also happened with Shannon Brown, where the Lakers had become kind of stale. This happens to organizations, right?
Shannon Brown was almost more of like I think like a
Shake Milton
archetype.
Where he was a throw-in.
Like you got a guy that you think can do okay in your system that wasn't the headliner of the trade. He was like a throw-in to the Adam Morrison trade.
And in both of those cases, you had this injection of athleticism and youth that the Lakers kind of desperately needed. And in this case, when those guys showed up, it was such a clear like injection of energy. Same kind of thing happened initially with Ramon Sessions too, where he was so fast that Ron Artest was like, dude, you need to slow down. We are not capable of running with you. And it was like really refreshing to watch those. And then
Ramon Sessions said, "Message received" in the playoffs.
He's like, never ran ever again. Look, if Ron Artest told me, like, grabbed me by the neck and told me to do something, I would do it.
Yeah.
Like, in fairness,
it's like, I will never dribble a basketball again. Okay, I respect you, Ron.
Ron Artest is one of the few people who intimidated me through Zoom. Like when I had him on the show back when I was still at Silver Screen, and it was still like, yes, Ron, yeah, good point, great point. But like we were the Lakers had gotten Trevor Ariza, and there was the game they were playing against the Phoenix Suns, and he had that dunk, I think on Grant Hill, where he went up with one hand and then he finished it with two, and he swung and Kobe went all nuts. It was an and one he missed a free throw. And like, it was like, you saw the reaction from Kobe where he was like, whoa, we have a guy who can do that now.
No. And then
like,
there's the famous bench reaction of there was a player on the Hawks that he blocked and they called it a goal.
Shannon Brown. Yeah. It was the block that he had. They called it a foul. It was to this day one of the worst calls I've ever seen. But again, like, you saw that bench erupt with like, oh, we got a guy that can jump. Yeah, right. And so like I'm looking at this Dorian Finney-Smith edition, and it's a team that is kind of bereft of grit, right? Bereft of like this mental, physical toughness defensively. And I think that injection of somebody who like has that approach and attitude towards basketball, especially with Jared Vanderbilt out, like, I think we're going to see a similar kind of reaction where it's like, oh, that's right. That's what a really good perimeter defender looks like. We already saw it again from Max Christie, where he got out there, he got his shit together, and he's been defending his ass off. And since he's been able to do that, actually, Anthony Davis's defensive impact numbers have looked a lot better. Because it's like, oh, that's right. This is what I can be when I don't have to make up for all four of the other guys on the court. And now all of a sudden you're going to have potentially Max Christie and Dorian Finney-Smith together out there defensively, plus Anthony Davis. Can you imagine
and
what
your shortest guy?
Yeah. Can you imagine what AD is going to look like in lineups where he doesn't have to worry about Dorian and about Max? he just has to make up for basically LeBron and Rui, or LeBron and Austin or whatever. Like that's gonna be
and
incredible.
like, he won't have to make up as much for Austin because Austin's going to be
Austin's
slotted in a better role defensively.
Yeah. And so and now when LeBron goes DH on defense, it doesn't hurt you nearly as much. And like, again, like these are all, now look, this is just how it's playing out in my brain. Maybe it doesn't necessarily work out this way. Maybe Dorian's shooting so far this season is a mirage, whatever. Like there are possible ways where this doesn't work out all that way. Yeah, we know. Well, yes, it's not going to hover at 44%.
I'm sorry, there's no way. I've seen enough guys put on that uniform and lose their powers. Like we know he's not shooting 46% or whatever it is the rest of the way. It's just like I will be happy with 36.
Yeah, and like this is Omaris, I think, puts it well, right? I'm just happy we finally have some players who are dogs and got some grit, and that's what I'm taking away from the basketball aspect of this. Now, from like the personnel movement stuff and the continued trade rumor stuff, like we could talk about that here in a bit. From just like a sheer basketball standpoint, I think the Lakers are a lot better because it takes them a further step back to that identity that they won a championship with back in 2019, 2020. And it's the way that LeBron and AD are most comfortable, I think, playing together, is beating the shit out of other teams defensively, getting out and running selectively, but very efficiently when they do, and then executing in the half court. And that's what Dorian Finney-Smith brings to the table.
Yeah. And, you have a little bit, you lose, I guess, like a little bit of the upside in those bench lineups with like, oh, D'Lo's just on a heater tonight. And he's like, he's hit 7 threes, or like, he's looking for it. He realizes AD has a mismatch. And so he's going to him every single time. Like I'm not trying to say that like, the Lakers will not miss D'Lo in some forms or capacities. Like there are going to be things that they have to adjust to without him. Like for as much as his reputation was, and I know Lakers fans were over him, and I totally get it. Like, I don't think that he was helping the ceiling of this team. And so I'm for this move, but there are going to be some hiccups here too. But I do think that in the long run, this gets the Lakers closer to the type of team that they have to be to compete in the playoffs, because I don't think D'Angelo Russell was really going to help you there.
So I looked it up. I do actually remember that correctly. It was November 2007. The Lakers acquired Trevor Ariza from the Magic for Maurice Evans and Brian Cook. Wow. I was through them. I hated Brian Cook with a fiery passion as a Laker. Like I couldn't stand the way that guy played basketball.
That'd be a good show guest for you. You bring him on and you just like grill. You're just like, so why were you so bad?
Look, man, any Lakers fan who want to go back and like remember, like, reminisce on these guys, Brian Cook like had negative motor. Like he just never tried. And he shot these threes that like always like hovered above, like they were like no arc to them.
That's an off-season pod for us. It's like your starting 5 of Lakers you hated the most. It's like Brian Cook, Tyler Ennis,
coached by Byron Scott.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. Did you see that D'Lo was like 3 threes away from passing him on the Lakers all-time list right before they traded him?
I wish we could get a camera from inside Spectrum's buildings of Byron Scott realizing that D'Lo, despite having the greatest shooting in the history of the Los Angeles shooting season in the history of the Los Angeles Lakers, did not pass Byron for the all-time threes record organizationally. That's amazing. Yeah. Now, less amazing was Nick Young tweeting after D'Angelo Russell was gone. Did you see that?
Oh no, I missed this. Did he do the tweet and delete again?
I don't know if he deleted. But I did see he was like, "Get your ass out of LA. Don't ever come back." And it's like,
it's like Nick Young. People weren't mad at D'Angelo Russell still because of your thing. They were mad at him because he like doesn't pay attention on defense. Like they don't. We've moved past the Iggy Azalea thing. Like,
it's also such bullshit. Like it's such a weak thing to do. Where like you're talking trash on the guy as he's leaving LA. You've had the entire time that he's been in LA to say something to him, and you haven't said anything. And then he's finally gone. It's like, yeah, and take that smack
and stay out.
Yeah, like you dweeb. Like oh man. Now let's talk about like what we think should come next. I'll just give a quick refresher. from what I'm told, again, that the Lakers are going to like they basically open up a window of data gathering now that they have Dorian Finney-Smith, and they're going to kind of gauge what this team looks like now that they have like
how many
a
games
Vanderbilt.
until we can judge this team? Are you
Well, that's the thing is that like I'm curious if they're going to say like if they're still going to do the Vando thing, because
oh man, that's the other aspect of this trade. We got to talk about this. Like, how monstrous is that front court going to be when you have Vando and Dorian Finney-Smith guarding guys?
Well, you just gotta make sure Vando can walk. But like,
I almost
essentially,
tweeted that yesterday, and I'm like, it's too mean. Like, I don't. People like, there's going to be some people that take it earnestly, and then some people are going to realize I'm doing a bit, and it's like, yeah. I mean, I hope Vando comes back, but I'm not like optimistic about that.
I don't sense a ton of optimism there either. But you know what? We'll see. But essentially, though, like a few of the conversations that I had landed in DFS Dodo. Are we calling him DFS or Dodo?
I have been going with DFS, but I just usually go to acronyms.
I think I'll tweet DFS, and it's easier to say Dodo.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dodo is what other players call him.
Yeah. Yeah, he probably doesn't want non-players calling him Dodo.
Or like, I mean, I don't know, like maybe the DFS thing is he's trying to avoid like being called like daily fantasy sports. Like he's
That's
avoiding
what I keep saying every time I see it.
Yeah, he wants to avoid a Jonte Porter situation, with his name.
He's like, yeah, because I tweeted out or I was getting ready to say
he's going to get an endorsement ad. He's going to be like, my name's Dorian Finney-Smith, and I know a little bit about DFS. So that's why I use Underdog. I was NFL bets, to be clear, just NFL.
I was getting ready to like tweet JJ is a big DFS fan, but I was like, oop, that probably doesn't look very good.
Nope. Yeah, you gotta rephrase.
Gotta say Dodo.
Yeah.
But yeah, I essentially it sounds like Dorian is going to be kind of the Vando replacement for the time being. And then if Vando is ever able to get healthy, then cool. There's your cherry on the top or whatever. If that is the case, or as that is the case, it makes me think they probably need another wing. Like you can't have one defensive wing because if he gets into foul trouble, what's that?
Who doesn't? I mean, every team does.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. I do like though that the Lakers finally made a trade where they sent out a guard and got back a wing. That makes me happy. Finally, it's in that direction.
I don't think that's always an easy trade to make because wings are the more coveted archetype. But I do think it is it's a good step in the right direction away from the 10 combo guards Austin at center era.
Yeah. It's nice that I don't think we have to worry about like so many like 3-guard lineups as much.
Yeah.
I
don't know that they're even possible at this point.
I'm happy. Look, we got there. Harrison, we made it.
That
Joe,
Austin, Gabe Vincent, Bronny backcourt. It's going to be incredible.
But yeah, what do you think? Like after this little window where they're going to kind of see what this team looks like, what do you think comes next? What need do you think is at the top of their priority list?
I know a lot of people are going to say the backup big, but for me, it's not that because I think that, again, like when it matters in the playoffs, AD is going to be playing center. And while it would be nice to sort of have that bruiser, it's just like the guys available that are on the market to me don't scream like, oh man, that's a guy I'd be really comfortable throwing on Jokic while AD roams and helps and whatever. And I guess again, it's like the Rui thing. Like the bar is not be the best at guarding Jokic. It's like be better at guarding Jokic than DFS is or something, or Rui is.
Yeah.
And so maybe that is a helpful guy. They're just like, it just feels like a misallocation of resources to me to use a first round pick, unless it's Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler feels like the guy that's available where it's like he's young enough to be worth sort of investing a first round pick.
Yeah.
He can theoretically play with AD a little bit more than some of the other names on the market. But like for me, Jonas doesn't move the needle. Sorry to go back to your favorite, your least favorite cliche. I apologize.
We made it 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But no, they were going
like
to
Vooch,
before...
you know, like I'm not a big fan of adding Vooch. Like I don't think that he really helps solve very many of the Lakers' problems.
You almost did it again.
No, I
moved the needle.
No, I very definitely avoided it.
But like, so before they drafted Connect, they went into last draft looking to draft a center with in the first round. And then, you know, Connect fell to them, and trading a first for Kessler, I think at this point would be essentially like, you know, or even moving 2 first, right? That would be like
2 feels steep for him.
Yeah, I think
this market where you're getting Dorian Finney-Smith for 3 seconds, I think 2 for Walker Kessler. Again, I know, like, you know, in the end, like the basketball players have to go out and play basketball. So like, it doesn't, if something costs you more than it quote unquote should, and it works out well for the team, then that's still a win. But I still think, that you should see if you should wait and see if you can get him for 1.
I think they will if they keep going down that line. The one thing that I'll say about Walker, and I said it on yesterday's show, and I'll continue to repeat it because I don't see enough people making this point, and I've talked to some people around the league about this. The complicating factor that the Lakers have with negotiating for Kessler, with Utah in particular, is that Utah has Lakers draft capital that extends into the future. And by sending Walker Kessler to the Lakers, a young center who is going to continue to get better, who's already good and is going to continue to get better, the concern from Utah's standpoint is like, we may have just made our future draft capital worse or less valuable.
Do they think Walker Kessler is changing the Lakers 2020? Which pick is it that they have again? Is it 2027? No, 2027. The Lakers, it's 2028, I think.
Yeah, whatever it would be, but like it's like a Walker Kessler, Anthony Davis front court would be like, it sets a pretty high baseline for how good or how bad the Lakers could possibly be.
They have a 2027 protected pick, so I guess that's not that far out.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's a
but if they think Walker Kessler is going to affect the fortunes of that pick all that much, then they shouldn't be trading him. Why
do you think he isn't like? He comes with the price tag of 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
you know, like that's at least my read of the
like
situation.
Negotiating 101 though, more than, you know, like an actual concern. That's like, oh no, you got to give us 2 first because you might mess up that other first that we have from you.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, like this is all public negotiation, right? Like that's what, you know, like if somebody closer to that side of the negotiation is going to like talk about the trade, they're going to frame it in a way that, you know, puts more pressure on the other side to you know, make the offer better. But I think that's a factor. I don't know if it's the factor, but like in 2027, Anthony Davis will be what, 33, and Walker Kessler will be like entering that like early prime that he would be. And that front court like is going to be really good still. And, you know, you'll still have Austin will be like 28, 29. He'll be in his prime. Dodo.
Yeah, I guess that's older. Like their worry there is like, did we create a team that's too good for them to convey the pick, you know, which then converts to 2 seconds if it doesn't convey.
Right. And that's essentially like, you know, a factor here that I think is worth keeping in mind. So, Omar, so LeBron will be 45 and still probably a top 25 player. But yeah, I am kind of curious. Trevon James makes an interesting point here. Should have gotten Sharp instead of Melton. I don't think Rob can help himself. He has to acquire a combo guard in any and all trades if you possibly can.
Well, I was Shake Milton's or Shake Milton, not Melton. Shake Milton's career high actually came in Los Angeles, and I was like, man, Rob is never beating the only one is the Lakers allegations, but then it was against the Clippers. So, he may not have league pass, but he was able to watch that game locally and was like, this is the guy who can help us.
Yeah. Anything else like beyond the bigs thing? Do you think, what do you think of the notion of replacing the guard creation? Like, is that a priority to you?
It's just of the guys that are on the market, none of them are like that exciting to me, where it's like a combo of like this fits with like Gabe's salary and then also is worth the first round pick or 2 first round picks. Like that is sort of, I guess, like the one or the major downside of this move is you don't have as much salary to cobble together for that next. I guess at this point you're saying, maybe does Rui become that extra sort of salary now to make more impact players or number match because he's more, well, they're not, there's no team to say, then you're giving up 2 first round picks. If you're trading Gabe Vincent and Vando for someone, at that point, it's 2 firsts. And so, like, at least with Rui, they can sort of talk themselves into, can he be a part of our future? Can we rehab his value and flip him if we're a tanking team? Does he help, our guys develop just by being like a capable vet? That kind of thing. Like, but I think he is more expendable now with this move because, there's just less minutes for that sort of like 4-5 type guy. Like you got a guy that does the things that you've been asking Rui to do out of position better than Rui does.
I see a lot of people asking about Bruce Brown. The problem that you run into with Bruce Brown is that he makes like just enough money to be an issue.
Yeah.
Right? Where he's making this year, where is it?
It's like 20, right? 24 or something.
Where is he? Oh no, he's not in Indiana anymore. He's like 20. He's like 23.
Yeah.
And that really complicates stuff for the Lakers, right? Like, do you want to send out Rui for Bruce Brown? Do you want to send out Max for Bruce Brown?
If Bruce Brown could play, I think I would make that swap. Like if you know for a fact he's healthy and he's going to be able to finish out the season and he's just like resting because there's no point in him playing for the tanking Raptors.
So he does make $23 million. Now the Lakers do have a little bit more leeway here. Although I do believe since they're above the first apron, they can't take back more money in trades. So that complicates stuff. But the Lakers, like if you would send out Rui and Gabe for Brown, let's see what that looks like. It says it's successful on Spotrac. The Lakers would cut $5 million. Genie's on board.
There we go. Look at this.
Would you
get smaller so Rob can get excited?
Yeah. Would you do Rui and Gabe
you get
Brown?
literally smaller. I think Bruce probably plays bigger in some ways.
I wonder what you would get. All right. So yeah, Pirtle makes 19.5 mil.
A lot of money. Yeah.
Why?
Because they traded a first round pick for him, so they couldn't lose him for nothing. So they had to pay him this crazy money.
What are you doing, Masai? That's so much money for freaking.
That's so much money for Jakob Poeltl.
That is so much. I'm looking. Kelly Olynyk makes 12, makes him like basically almost 13. So
then I think the Lakers are having to send more salary if they're going to do that.
Yeah. So then it would be like you could send Jalen, and you can
Raptors get a young prospect in the deal. I already know what the Shams tweet is going to say. It's like Raptors get like a young guard prospect that they've been eyeing since his draft, and we'll see if he can play his way into their future plan.
I guess if you go Rui, Gabe, Jalen, and Wood for Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, I wonder what people would think about that one.
That's interesting. I do think that makes the Lakers better.
I think so too. Well, especially like You're sending out 2 players that you're not using. 3 really. No, two. All
I don't know
right.
if that's worth first to me though.
What's that?
I don't know if that's worth 2 firsts to me though. That's
Oh
worth 1
God,
first.
no. No. Why would you? No.
Yeah.
No.
That's worth 1 first, I think.
I'm not sure it would be worth a first. Like you could send out a first, but I would expect a couple seconds coming back.
Well, you have to send out a first in that case because otherwise, why is Toronto doing it?
Yeah, but I would say like Toronto has to send back a second.
Yeah.
All right, we just fixed the Lakers. Look at us.
Yeah, I was going to say, we just did Rob's job. Rob, you can go to Disneyland.
We all stay at Disneyland. No, he's been there ever since he made the trade.
Yeah.
They could send the 2 seconds. I think they only have. Well, let's see. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the super comments before we get out of here.
Let's dive into the Lakers salary cap situation live on air. Who wants to hear us read which draft picks they might have?
All right.
They actually do not have any tradable seconds left.
I thought they had 1.
I don't think they do. It does at least on Salary Swish, it does not look like they do. At least none of their own.
I've never heard of Salary Swish. All right. Let's dive into the super comments. Rye Guy kicks it off with Obi Toppin, Nick Richards, and Dennis Smith Jr. Do they have enough to get all of them? Well, probably, but you'd have to overpay because of the second round pick situation. You'd have to create a roster spot to get Dennis Smith Jr. So, I don't know. What do you think? Like, how do you feel about Nick Richards? Have you ever thought about Nick Richards before in your life?
No, he could be a made-up player as far as I'm concerned.
He'd be okay. He'd be pretty similar to having Jackson Hayes on your team.
He's a guy that people started talking about from like he's on the Hornets, I believe, right? And yeah. I was like, you're making this person up. Like this is just like a center that you made up in your head that you're just like, oh, this is a smart draft target. Like, are we sure he exists?
Can I interest you in Reed Richards? How about that?
Yeah, that would solve a lot of the Lakers' length problems. Versatile, switchy defender.
Little, overthink some stuff though. Sometimes a little mental.
High basketball IQ though.
Yeah, but like almost too high.
It's just I think all of his shots go in because he can his signature move is just the Michael Jordan from Space Jam dunk.
It's the Wemby. Did you see that clip? It's the
Go gadget. Go gadget on my arms.
Yeah. J1, people remember DFS as the mobile defender in Dallas. Yeah, I mean, it was a couple years ago. So that's a part of it. But I think a big part of it from my perspective, or the math that I'm doing, is that he's a more mobile defender than like Rui, or he's a more mobile defender than like Dalton or the other guys who've been playing
that stuff as he used to be, but he's better than anyone on the Lakers at it still.
Yeah. And I also don't think like it has been that big of a focus point in Brooklyn to where like, it's a situation where nobody really cares about winning there except for the coach. And
no, the players do. The players have bought it. The player until recently when they started, just selling off all their teammates for parts. The players were pretty bought in to start the season.
Yeah.
Dennis was galvanizing leader. And then has apparently destroyed the Warriors. So I don't.
Rye Guy says Shams makes it sound like Kessler is on the way. I don't know. They got close to landing Kessler over the summer, I was told, but Utah, anytime you talk to anybody close to Utah, like they really push back on how close that ever got. So
the fact that Kessler seems to only play against the Lakers has been sort of fairly telling.
It's just Danny dangling.
He'll be out and they're like, he's like, yeah, no, he's ready to go tonight.
Yeah. Landon Archuleta, you guys, are you going to do any playbacks or pressure cookers? Yeah, I think coming up after the holidays, as the games start to mean a little bit more and have more eyeballs on them, I'll probably do a few more stuff like that, things like that. I haven't gone on anybody's playback so far this year. It's actually been kind of nice to just kind of watch the games and be able to talk about them a little bit more coherently after the games, rather than feeling like I have to like entertain during them. But I think eventually we'll get back to doing stuff like that. We have some cool stuff lined up after the new year that I can't really talk about specifically, but I think you guys will be pretty excited about. George Arias says, "How would you
This is an
evaluate?"
interesting question.
Yeah, how would you evaluate D'Lo's career as a whole, all things considered? Harrison, I'll let you take this one because I answered the last couple.
That is a really interesting question that I've not thought enough about. Like, what a weird arc to go from number 2 pick, franchise savior. He's going to learn under Kobe, but in Kobe's farewell tour, to then like shipped out because it's like, well, we actually hate that guy and we needed a real point guard. And then he comes back, helps the team make the Western Conference Finals, but then is part of one of the more disappointing years in recent memory. Not the most disappointing. That was obviously the first Russ year, but just like, honestly, like I think it's really his career arc with the Lakers is really on brand for D'Lo, in that like 50% of it was really fun and 50% of it was some of the worst basketball you've ever seen. You know?
I'm gonna get so many comments about like so many email comments like about that, because every time somebody puts a comment in the on these videos after they are done streaming live, I get an email about that. And that one in particular is going to piss people off. And I completely agree with it. Like it's just like
it's the perfectly D'Lo arc.
D'Lo like
he was both good. Help. He's Schrodinger's basketball player. He's both good and bad at the same time.
Yeah, like he can't help, but it's also loud good and loud bad all time.
That's what I mean. Right? Like I think that honestly, I don't think the Nets understand what they just traded for. They just traded for D'Angelo Russell with the lowest stakes possible. Like he's going to mess up their tank. He's going to be so good.
Yeah. I think, man, how am I going to remember D'Lo? I actually enjoyed early on D'Lo.
Me too.
I thought he got kind of a raw deal because of the Nick Young situation.
You and I were really two of his defenders, I think, in the media at that point.
He really butted heads with local media at that time. And I think that's how a lot of this is framed, that first stint. And then, Magic's friendship with Byron, I think, played a big role in Magic shipping him. I think Magic actually admitted to that a little bit after the fact, that like, he was kind of done with D'Lo because of the stuff that Byron was telling him. And
I mean, it's not like they work out together like regularly still. So
yeah,
even if Magic didn't say it, it's not hard to guess.
I'm pretty sure he's on the record saying something along those lines. And then
and then he's like, well, we also couldn't draft Jason Tatum. I just want to put that out there because we had Kyle Kuzma, Larry Nance Jr., and who was the other one that they had for Julius Randle.
Said Randle.
Yeah, they had Randle, who they let go at the end of the next year, and then Larry Nance Jr., who they traded at midseason, and Kuz, who just like played anyway. But they couldn't draft Jason Tatum. They just want you to know that.
And they couldn't, they drafted another guard, which forced them to trade the other guard. Like, does Magic?
You can only have one good player at each position, famously. Yeah. That was shocking. How Showtime worked. Was the whole bench sucked, famously.
Actually, kind of sort of did.
They had some guys that could contribute. They were good.
Hoop was fine. Kurt was fine, but like teams were pretty shallow back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, how am I going to remember D'Lo? I think because I was also really bummed that they shipped out D'Lo before we got to see him and Lonzo together. Because I actually really believe in that backcourt.
It's going to be funny if they trade for Lonzo at the deadline and they just miss playing together again.
Like,
ships in the night.
Yeah, who would you rather trade for, Brown or Lonzo? They've played roughly the same.
In my heart, it's Lonzo. But I just, like, I don't know. I'd be too concerned about like all the injury stuff over the last couple of years.
What? I wonder what Lonzo's contract is, because I think it's roughly similar to
In my heart, it's 100% Lonzo. Like, it would be so much fun to just like have him come home and have like a meaningful playoff run with the team. Like, remember how invested we all were in his development. Like, it would be such a cool story. But I think my head says Brown.
Lonzo is making 21.4 mil, just shade under 21.4.
Yeah.
Brown makes 23, as we just talked about. So negligible difference there. Though I guess every million counts in the CBA.
Yeah, you might have to attach Christian Wood. That's like the difference,
Wouldn't have to. But yeah, I think people are a little too high on Brown, to be honest. He has barely played the last couple of years. Like he has rarely
but a lot of that's been
debut
like
the other day.
Stuff. A lot of that's been like tanking stuff, and they're like, well, like why we're not going to force you to go out there when we're not playing for anything.
Right, but he also wasn't great in Indiana when he got away from Jokic. Now, like if the theory is that
good
like
for the first half of that, he was pretty good until they traded him. He
was.
They made it to the in-season tournament final,
but it wasn't it wasn't. Like Ben Mathurin, I think, played a bigger role in that, and he wasn't as good as he was in Denver, especially not as good as he was.
No one's as good as they are playing with it. Like, no one's as good leaving Jokic as they are playing with him.
Yeah, but he's paid to be away from Jokic, right?
Yeah.
So like that, I think it's Brown.
He's the kind of guy that I think he would play really well off of LeBron too.
I think so too. That's probably true. And off of Austin, right? Like,
yeah.
Giving that tertiary creator.
He's just like a high IQ, like knows where to be guy. And not that Lonzo isn't. Lonzo's smart about that stuff as well. But I think Bruce Brown is the type of player, like he's one of those guys. He's a force multiplier. He gets better around better players.
Yeah.
He's not that valuable if you don't have. Yeah, exactly. Like he's not that valuable around if your team is like a bunch of tanking like Raptors prospects. But if your team is a bunch of guys that sort of want to play a specific way and are competing for something, I think he's more valuable.
I think, see, now this is where I am inherently kind of like like I'm inherently contradictory. I think it's Brown, but I think it's closer than people on here are talking about.
You just are a contrarian.
I think so. That might be it.
We just don't want to agree with people on Bruce Brown that you're like, I think I got to go Lonzo. It's the more interesting answer.
I do really. I'm a proponent of going out and getting Brown. Just $23 million makes it difficult.
Yeah.
I don't love trading 2 rotation players for a role player and giving up a first, right? Like, don't love that. But you wouldn't have to give up a first for Lonzo.
No, I would not think so. I mean, maybe that is the argument for Lonzo is you could get him for a couple seconds. The Lakers actually, they do have their own 2025 second this year and a Clippers one. So maybe that's enough for Chicago in this market.
I wonder if Chicago would take on Vanderbilt's contract.
No, why would they?
Well, just because like they're going to be bad anyway. Like this is the part that drives me crazy about these.
That's not their goal. Their goal is they want to be as good as possible. Like they're going to want, like they would want Rui back because they're like, well, this guy will play a lot of games.
Yeah. It's hard to like gauge what Chicago would or wouldn't do because they're so.
You just
stupid.
have to guess. It's like, what would the dumbest person that you can think of do? And then it's like, that's probably.
I like how we both arrived at the exact same point.
Yeah.
And both made it as mean as we possibly could. And there were 2 versions of the same point.
Yeah.
If I knew that I was getting a healthy, all right, how about this? Healthy Brown, healthy Lonzo, who would you rather have? Lonzo. Know that they're going to be healthy.
Lonzo? Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I just can't, there's much lower chance that Lonzo will be healthy than there is at Brown being healthy. Even though, again, those guys have played roughly the same amount of games over the last couple of years. Yeah. I think Brown's probably played quite a few more.
Brown's definitely played more. Over the last couple of years, Brown's definitely played more.
Yeah. This season, I think Lonzo has played more.
This season, it's probably Lonzo's probably played more.
Yeah. We actually got 2 more questions. So Theo, although I think they're about the same person. Yeah, they are. So Theo, the first one says, if you watch Dayron Sharp, you'd understand why he's never a target. 6 points, 5 rebounds on 40% shooting as only a 6'9" center, giving half of a block on, bad rim deterrent numbers. And then he continues, Richards gives you 9 and 8 with 1.2 blocks as a 245-pound bruiser, 7-footer on a cheap contract. Dollar General Kessler, come on now, guys.
You know what, Theo? I'll give it to you. I'm just going to be real honest. I've not watched the Hornets really hardly at all in like the last 2 years. It's just they've not been high on my list. You know,
same goes for Dayron Sharp. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
I watched some Nets basketball because I have watched, they have been fun to watch this year.
You do a national NBA podcast.
Well, so
you're actually bad at your job if you don't watch the Nets and know that. I'm just
around. You're a Hoop purist.
Yeah. I just watch wherever the call of the ball takes me.
They can't keep you away from this game.
I prefer to watch good teams on my leisure time than watching the Hornets. Sorry, it's not.
Look, the Hornets are sorry.
Oh, that actually, you should clip just that part and see if you can get aggregated by awful announcing or something, and be like, SB Nation NBA leader admits he doesn't ever watch the Hornets.
Your Hornets blog, the Hornets blog would be like, we know, we've been emailing him for a whole year.
We don't have a Hornets blog, but
all right, that is going to do it here as we cross the hour threshold for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Fun show here. Plan probably isn't to do a show tomorrow during Christmas Eve because I will be hosting
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. We went back in time. Hey, today feels like Christmas morning and has felt like Christmas morning since the Lakers traded for a wing. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah. How quickly do you think people are going to get mad that he doesn't make every single three?
If he misses one in warm-ups, there's going to be oh, are we sure about this, guys?
No. I think it's going to take 5 games. But if he shoots 32% his first 5 games, people are going to be like, damn, they really missed D'Lo. That was a bad move. This guy's washed.
No, what's really going to hurt is that D'Lo is going to look incredible playing for no stakes whatsoever. And
that's what I'm saying. No stakes. D'Angelo Russell is maybe going to make a late All-Star push in the East.
There's a bunch of hipsters in Brooklyn. I could see them voting for D'Lo.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great one, everybody. Please, as I say before all these holidays, please be safe out there. If you're going to do any drinking, hop in an Uber, hop in a Lyft, assign a DD, sign up to be the DD, all of those good things. Please be safe on this big kind of night of the year, or the first night of the year. And then we will be back on New Year's Day to talk about the New Year's Eve game. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Harrison Faigen. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Hit that subscribe button, like button, share button, tell your friends, enemies, all of that good stuff. Happy New Year, everybody.